All right, welcome back. If I don't hang the engine in this video, I'm not posting it. Promises, promises. I have just a few little things to do, and one is to put the ground on this bolt and the ground on this side of the bolt, because that is the engine mounting bolt, and then I can tighten those. But instead of putting all these washers on here, I'm actually combining the two 8-gauge wires. So these are for the inside, and they're going to go up to these two grounding blocks. But I'm going to combine them into one 4-gauge lug, put them in a vise, hammer down the middle to get like a little heart-shaped thing, and I basically just do it with a hammer. I found that works pretty good. And then on the outside, I'm going to combine these two 4-gauge into a 2-gauge lug, or whatever fits best. And then the only other thing I have is ground cables, torque the engine mounts obviously, put the dipstick back on, we talked about that, and the quick drain and that 90. But I think most important is I'm going to pull the oil filter off, and hopefully it won't make a big mess. After watching Steve's video, I guess his brilliant wife had the good idea to take that off, and it makes sense to get it in underneath the mount here. Anyway, time to get some stuff done, because I can't think of any more stuff to do. What's wrong with this picture? In my excitement to show off my crimping technique, I grabbed the wrong lug. This is a 1/4 inch. I need the 5/8. I think I said 5/8. I meant 5/16 obviously. Nothing a unibit can't fix. Obviously I only drilled out the 1/4 inch hole because the lug has the same amount of meat on it as the one with the 5/16. So got that in there. This is just kind of to put it in position. I obviously don't want it rubbing up against the wall there. And then I'm not sure how the rest of the wiring is going to run once George brings back all the trays. I guess I left them longer rather than shorter because it's easier to shorten than to lengthen them. And now I moved on to this heavy duty one, and I don't want to criticize, but I took the heat shrink off of the supplied one, and if you ask me, that's a pretty shitty freaking crimp. Does it hold? Obviously, but boy, I gotta teach someone about the simple chisel and a vise. Anyway, now it kind of makes me want to redo. What else do we have from them? I think the only other cable I'm using is this one, so I'll take a look at them. All right, I combined the battery in and the grounding to the engine block into one 2-gauge connector. And if you remember before, I had it running down here, but the engine block ground is actually up here, and since all the exhaust stuff's going to be there, I think I'm going to try and maneuver it over to there, and plus down there it wouldn't be long enough anyway. So I think it's actually time to mount the engine mount to the frame and torque the nuts. So the reason I waited till the very end to tighten these, once I was 100% sure that they can go on for good, because I didn't want to wear out that nylon part of the nut. I'm sure it has some kind of value. So anyway, put the torque seal on it. These were recommended between 100 and 140 inch-pounds. So I set my wrench at 120 and just kind of staggered them. That's why I was going back and forth until the wrench clicked. And oh yeah, feels solid. All right, one step closer to mounting that engine. Getting excited. But for now, oops, good night. Oh well, curiosity got the best of me. He took the oil drain out and some oil's coming out. I'm not sure how much, but I'll just let it drain overnight and not taking any chances. That's why the big bin too. Alright, it's been sitting for a few days. Wife took me away for a quick getaway to the Cape, and that's how much oil came out. And I don't want to jinx it, but got George coming by and my friend Chris and a couple other buddies for a little show and tell. And while I have everyone here, maybe we'll hang this engine today. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Alright, I put the quick drain oil plug in there, put some safety wire on it. I was about to put the dipstick tube back in it, but on second thought, I think I'm gonna leave it out just so we don't whack it trying to hang it onto the engine mount or something. I'm gonna remove the oil filter as well. Alright, got the oil filter off and put some plastic over it. Then I went to put this on. And if you look closely in the instructions, it tells you to cut this halfway, while me trying to, I don't know, be better, I cut it at the full length and it doesn't clear. So I'm gonna cut that halfway. Silly. Well, it finally happened. The engine is hanging tall and proud. A lot easier to work underneath it now, that's for sure. Went pretty uneventful. George came over and my friend Chris came over and a bunch of other friends. That was a little more like show and tell, but I put them all to work while they're here. And we got this thing hung pretty easily, got the bolts in. I'm a little confused. In the manual it says 450 to 500 inch pounds, but usually you do the torquing from the nut side. So I actually found out my torque wrench doesn't work, so I did my small torque wrench up to 200 pounds, left it at that, and I'm gonna tighten the rest of them tomorrow. I'm glad I got a lot of this stuff, like I sanded the ground paint off for the ground inside here off, and get a couple of those connectors on there because it gets pretty tight. But yeah, pretty excited. Big exciting day. All right, for now, good night. I almost forgot. An engine install video wouldn't be complete without talking about the modified wrench. So, as others have done, you gotta grind the whole bottom side of this off and a good chunk on the top to be able to get it. I had these things wire tied up. Get it in there to let's see, to get a grip on that. But yeah, again, hokey, but goes with the rest of it. Had to grind that part and also all around there just to make it thinner, but it works. Now let me turn on some lights again. Trying to go to bed, but getting stuff done. Put the oil filter back on. I trimmed this thing so it fits. This hose, in all honesty, you know, I mean, I can stretch it on there, but it could use a little length. This one's fine, the fuel one, so I put that on. Then I'm trying to figure out how to get these oil lines to fit nicely while clearing the big, you know, scat tube thing here. What I did, I know everybody's got a different solution. Some people put 45s down here. I actually swapped these two. This may be a real rookie question, but I don't think there's a dedicated in and out on the oil cooler. So if that's okay, then this would be my recommendation. I tweaked these 45s a little bit, but then ended up kind of putting them back to where they were. I mean, this is tight, but nothing hits. This can be kind of, you know, wire tight out of the way of this. And the starter wire, started to run that over here, just trying to get an idea of where things go. Played with the ignition cables, and I don't know, kind of like touching everything everywhere, all the stuff that I've been wondering if it fits and where it goes, and couldn't wait to get the engine up here and have all this room underneath. Yeah, so playing with that. Oh, I put the ground on. I don't know if you can see it in there. I mean, I didn't tighten it yet, but I'm pretty sure that's a good spot and a good cable. I used the same clamps from the speed, whatever you call them, the high tension clamps. I put that on the 4 gauge too. Holds pretty good. And all right, I'm babbling, it's late. It's been a productive day. Probably end this video here so they don't get so long. And I don't even, yeah, next up's going to be engine work, more engine work, and some engine work, exhaust, EGT probes, alternator wiring. George is pretty close to finishing the instrument panel, so all those wires are going to go out and in and about and around, but for now, good night.